Hey, what's going on, everybody, man? Welcome back to the follow-up. Man, if you missed Sunday, I'm telling you, it was awesome. Lecture in Lab. It's great. You'll get it if you watch it. You'll understand. But it was such a great morning. Continuing with Mark, it was phenomenal. It was such a good moment of basically deciding and talking about what it's either being childish or childlike.
Yeah.
Now, don't get offended right now. Okay?
No, nobody's going to go back and watch it now. They're like, I don't want to hear that.
It's so good. It was so good. And so I know you had a great time with it. And so if you haven't been watching or haven't caught up with any of it, we encourage you to go to our website, catch up, go to our app, download the FLC Buoy app, go on there, and you can listen like a podcast or you can watch it. I mean, it is phenomenal. Mark has been so amazing. But just to get down to it, do you feel like there was something that you really wanted to go deeper on, but you just didn't have time, or there was just something that you didn't get to talk about as much? What was that?
Well, I mean, we could have pressed a lot more on the childish section and the childlike section. We could have went for days on just talking about really the contrast between the two. We could have spent a lot of time on that. We didn't in the sermon, thank the Lord, because I think it was like an hour. But we're going to do a little bit more of that in groups. So if somebody shows up in a life group, it's geared more towards really trying to see, really the remedy for childishness is childlikeness. That's what it is. It's trying to get them to see it right. The disciples in this moment are kind of the people that are having to deal with this issue. Are you going to be childish or childlike? Are you going to miss out on what Jesus is trying to do? And I think that's maybe the most powerful moment in the text is when Jesus blesses the children and touches them. And we spent some time talking about that in the sermon because that's really what the disciples miss out on. And I think that's really what we're all after.
Yeah.
And so what he's revealing is, childlikeness puts us in his arms. Childlikeness puts us near to him and where he can touch us and where he can bless us. And that's where I think if you were to say, do you want to be blessed by Jesus? Are you wanting to be shown his favor? The favor of God to be on you. Do you want to be in his arms? Do you want to be close to him? I think most of us would say yes. That's why we're here. Like that's what we're pursuing. That's what we're after. Yes, absolutely. Well, then he goes, look, this is the inroad to it. You're going to have to be childlike. You're going to have to get a childlike approach to me, faith in me. That's just different. That's obviously different than what the disciples are doing. I love the contrast between the disciples not even going to him to ask him a question. They don't understand. Really, the most important thing that Jesus is telling them is, I'm about to die, but I'm going to rise again.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that he's going to say. Because that's the literal mechanics of the gospel is I'm going to go and die for the sins of the world and resurrect again. 3 days later, I'm coming out of the grave. And they don't want to talk to him. They're like, not going to ask him. You ask him. No, I'm not going to ask him. And so, I love that contrast where the kids just run straight into his arms. Yeah. You're approachable. We want to talk to you. So, so we could have spent more time talking. I mean, going back and forth, I could have picked on us a lot more with our childishness that we go through, that I go through, that any of us go through, and so we were able to be playful with it. And I hope everybody understands there's a playfulness to it, but then there's a real seriousness to the fact that all the things that we can laugh about, we laugh because they're true. Yeah. And so, our ridiculous approaches to, even church life and, how childish we can be in that area. I picked on a lot of those. So if you want a good time, go listen to at least that section where we have some fun. And we laugh because all of those things are true. So we could have set longer on that. I didn't feel like, I felt like it would be fun, but if we did, but there was, there's no reason for it. I think everybody kind of understood that there's a real difference between being childlike when it comes to Jesus, this kind of reckless abandon moving towards him.
Yeah.
And a childishness where there's this real selfish edge to us, this real, demand to get what we want kind of thing as well. And so I think we got it. I think we understood it. This is the one and maybe one and only section in the entire book of Mark, in our entire walk through the book of Mark, that we actually skipped sections of scripture to grab two sections and put them together. It's really the one and only time that we really are doing this. There's going to be one other time that we're actually going to get back to this text. This text is not going to go away because we didn't talk about the who's the greatest conversation. The first shall be last, the last shall be first conversation. We didn't necessarily deal with it. We just see a bit of the selfish thoughts. The selfish thoughts about who are we going to be rather than who is Jesus. Like, he's the greatest, so you can't even have that title.
Yeah.
And so we mentioned it very briefly as far as the who is the greatest idea, that their minds are so wrapped up into who I am rather than who he is. Yeah. You get the contrast with the kids going, it's all about Jesus. So when Jesus shows up, their full attention is on him. They want to get to him because it's all about him. He's everything. And so you get a chance to see that contrast because they're more worried about who's going to be the greatest, who's going to sit next to them. Yeah. That conversation is going to come up later. James and John we're going to talk about that. They're going to talk. They're going to ask Jesus about sitting next to him, the whole thing. And so you really get a chance to see that. But the thing that we don't get is we didn't talk really anything about that particular conversation. So we're going to reach back and grab it later because there's a text that's going to kind of connect it. And so we're going to reach back kind of retrospectively, grab that conversation that they're having with Jesus. But those are the only two moments that we're really kind of going, okay, here's a text, skip some, grab a text, and then we're going to grab a text, reach back and grab it. Yeah. So that only happens twice in the series. But this one I really liked because you got a chance to see an episode, like a little moment. And then there's several things that happen in between, but then they actually, and this is where the lecture lab, it's they get a chance to practice it. Or it's like we're having a conversation. It's like film study in here, and then the game happens, and they forget everything that they learned. Completely. Right? Yeah, they failed completely. And so, so I really wanted those two texts to set together because they do. Because that's what he brings a child in, and then here's an opportunity to receive a child. Mm-hmm. To literally receive a child. And because they don't receive a child in the name of the Lord, because they don't accept them and receive them into this fellowship, Jesus makes it even stronger and goes, you're going to have to be like them. You're going to have to figure out how to get there. So anyways, I don't necessarily think we didn't really leave anything out other than what was intentionally supposed to be left out, and that is, let's don't talk about the greatest conversation, the first, the first will be last kind of conversation, because that's going to, so breathe. That's going to come up later. All right. That will connect eventually, and we will talk about that section.
We're not skipping scripture.
And we're also not skipping, and this is the beauty of going through a book. And I always, in any chance that it comes up, I always want to mention it, is that this is the reason why I like preaching through books of the Bible, is because, we skipped over the very beginning of Mark 10 that is talking about divorce. So most of us, I'll speak for even myself, like most preachers on a Sunday morning aren't reaching for Mark 10, They're not. They're not reaching for Mark 10, 1 through 12. They're just not reaching for that naturally. It's not a natural thing that we would want to reach towards. Yeah. But because we're walking through the book of Mark, we didn't skip it.
No.
So that is coming, all right? Yeah. And so I think there's two more sermons, and then we're there. Yeah. So if you're doing the math on that, we still have two more sermons in Mark 9 that we've got to cover. But I think everybody in the building understood it. And so if you are watching it later or whatever, hopefully you get that as well. We're not going to skip those scriptures. Yeah. We're going to work our way back to I think it's verse 38 in Mark 9 is where we're going to pick up this coming week, and we'll pick up into that, conversation. But I wanted these two texts to set together because they do. Yeah. It's literally, he gives them a lecture, and then it's lab time, and they have to get in there. So those two texts should set together. Yeah. But I think what's cool And Mark's inspired by God, right? So he's writing down exactly how God wants him to write it down. And so there is space in between. And I love that because you're almost meant to feel, oh, wait a second. He just told them like a page over, like I turn my page back and go, he just said, receive a child. Dang, they didn't. They're rebuking. He said receive. They got the wrong R word. Yeah. He said receive. They rebuked. Receive, rebuke. Receive, rebuke. And you're meant to feel it like that. And then Jesus turns and is super upset. Yeah. I mean, he's indignant.
Oh, is it indignant?
Indignant towards the disciples. He is ticked. All right. So he's mad, and so he's soft with the kids. And he's indignant. He is angry because of it's a religious moment. They are falling victim to all the religion guys. The disciples are sliding off into that too. So we also could have talked about that, like how easily it is to slide off into, being religious or religion, especially when it comes to kids. And I think sometimes us as adults, that could have been a whole sermon. Yeah. You should love kids and you should get kids to Jesus.
Yeah.
And where we fail is sometimes it's not that we don't love kids, but we don't receive them in the name of the Lord. And then we also miss, a plethora of opportunities to push a child towards Jesus. Yeah. And here the disciples are literally doing the opposite. Yeah. They are not receiving them, accepting them into fellowship, and they're pushing them away from Jesus. And how often do we do that? Yeah. As church people, we do it. As parents, we do it. As grown-ups, we do it. Just in life in general. And we don't take opportunities to push kids towards Jesus. And where we mess that up, it makes me want to preach it. Maybe we should just stay in that text and I'll preach this. No, got to stay on schedule. We'll get back to it. But this could be a message. This could be a sermon. How we push kids away from Jesus, maybe more than anything, is when we look at a relationship with Jesus from a religious mindset. Yeah. He's talking right now, so you don't need to be doing that.
Absolutely.
I remember being a kid, like, don't run in the sanctuary. Okay, yeah, there's some practical reasons for that. Like our hallway in our church building, like it's a blind corner.
Yeah. You're turning
if you're ever here on a Wednesday night, this is the reason why our Freedom Kids crew will be like, hey, listen, don't run. The space is too small, right? And so that's a blind corner right there. You better have your head on a swivel and all of that. But here's the thing: there's practical reasons, but here's what we do: we give it a religious reason. Yeah. Well, you're being disrespectful. You're wearing a hat in here. This is the sanctuary. Yeah. And so don't wear a hat in church. And we make it a religious thing. Yeah. Does that make sense? And so I'm like going. And then we hard press the kid and tell them if you're wearing a hat or if you ran for a second, like then all of a sudden that like Jesus doesn't like you now. Yeah. And I just don't think kids think that way, man. I just don't. Yeah. I think that when I see kids excited, where they want to run, like. It's one of those things where I go, whenever you watch a kid, if they're excited about something, oh my Lord, they're 100 miles an hour. Like everything is just, we gotta go, right? You take a kid to Six Flags, they're like running to the gate, right? Ready to get in. You take them to go get ice cream. They're like, woo, ice cream, boom, boom, and they're going. They're ready to go. They're ready to get in there. Whatever it is, they're excited. And so you can always tell if a kid doesn't like things like playing soccer, hypothetically. I'm a soccer coach. You can always tell when a kid doesn't, when he really doesn't like what's happening. Like maybe the parents are just making them do it, because you can tell, because they're walking out on the field like, I do. The other ones are like, man, they're grabbing their soccer ball, they're running out before we ever warm up or before we ever start. They're getting there early and they're kicking the ball around, they're flying around everywhere because they're excited about being there. You can tell the difference. And so kids that are, so I love the fact that sometimes for the sake of our own lives and our own preservation, hey, don't run because it's a blind corner. All right. So, hey, don't run. For a practical reason, that makes total sense. So I don't want anybody hearing me wrong. Like I want, everybody running through the hallways.
Chaos. It's not
chaos, but what I'm saying is that don't rob a kid of their joy for being at the house of the Lord and because of your religious mindset. Yeah. So, don't talk loud to your friends when you're in this room because it's sacred and it's a glorified shed, dude. And they're excited about being here. They're fellowshipping with their friends that are excited about being here. Yeah. And when they worship, they go for it. What about you? Yeah. And you don't. And so that's kind of an issue, right? Mm-hmm. And so some people don't like that. Mm-hmm. But I love to see our kids running into this place excited. And for practical safety reasons, we have to go, hey, take it easy around the corner.
That's not a good idea.
Take it easy around the corner. Or, back in our Freedom Kids room, don't throw the football across the room. Well, yeah, because there's 1,900 kids that are between you and the receiver and their faces and all, hey, maybe let's don't because it's a really tight space, but there's really practical reasons that you would ask a kid to calm down. It's not chaos, and I like the way you put it. It's not, we don't want chaos. Yeah. But boy, I love the excitement. Yeah. I love to see kids, and because of our religious approach to things, we'll rebuke them and push them away from Jesus rather than going, hey, let's create atmosphere to push them towards it and cultivate that excitement and then harness that excitement to keep it from killing all of us. You know what I mean? Like I get it. Like kids, if they're unhinged, will kill us all, right? And they'll kill us all and you get it. And so I get it, but this is one of those moments that I'm like, Jesus is just wanting them to come to him and be close to him and be near him so he can bless them and touch them. But I think sometimes for us, we get too hyper religious and we think that that's dignified and all of that. But there's a lack there should be in us a lack of restraining our indignity, if that makes sense. Because when we come to the Lord, there is I guess in some respects there should be an indignity to it because we're opening ourselves up, and sometimes that's ugly, and sometimes that's messed up, and sometimes but we're coming to Him and saying everything that I am, and I have nothing to offer, but here I am, and so there is a little bit of that, I think,
That's good.
And there is a indignity in, I don't care who's watching. Yeah. I think that there is. I think that there is man, if I'm just going to go for it, there's this, I don't really care about people thinking that I've got it all together, I'm dignified, I'm just going to open up. There's that great text we always talk about. David's like, I'll become even more undignified than what you've already seen because of my pursuit of God and my honor of Him. I'm going to go for it, and I don't care what you think about that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I think there is that. But so we could have preached a whole sermon on that. Yeah. Which I just did.
Yeah, there you go. There's your little nugget for the day.
Little sermon.
Little nugget for the day.
Think about that for the day. And
I love how you said that, though, the idea of childish and childlike, but the attitude of children are, if you ever see an excited child, it's 90-0.
Yes.
What a perfect analogy of the pursuit of Jesus.
Yeah. Yes.
90-0 in pursuit of Jesus. Yeah. That's what He wants.
Yeah. We're 100 miles an hour all day, every day.
Snot-nosed faces.
There's no other speed but that. Exactly. Like go hard and fast towards the things of God.
And that's what He's trying to talk about.
Yeah. And I found it, and obvious. At one point in the sermon, if you remember, I actually apologized for all of the metaphors and analogies. Yeah. But it's so easy. This sermon just was tailor-made for, let's really just look at a real-world example. Yeah. As compared, with what the biblical principles are, that's so clear. When you think about children, that's what He's doing. And Jesus is embracing this analogy. He brings the child in front of Him, and then He uses the children that are running towards Him as an object lesson to say, think about how these kids are.
Yeah.
Let's think about how they are, and let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In regard to your pursuit of me and God, because he says it in the text. I mentioned it. What's at stake is we get to receive not just Jesus, but Jesus makes a point to say, not me, him.
Yeah.
The one who sent me.
Yeah.
You get to receive God the Father.
Yeah.
The God of the universe, the creator of the world. You get to receive him. You'll receive him. Yeah. If you'll make way for,
so good.
If you make way for children, and quite honestly, you can use it even in the sense of those that are young in their faith, even.
Yeah.
And we'll get in a little bit of, that's going to tie in this week, and so I won't give too much of that away. But it's even more than just literal children. He's going to apply it to, to even others that are younger in their faith. Watch how you are around them. Don't cause them to stumble and sin, and don't get them off the rails. And so it's big. This is a huge thing for Jesus, and this is a huge moment for the disciples. Therefore, it's a huge moment for us to learn and to say, hey, why don't you let children in? Why don't you push children towards the things of Jesus, which we didn't talk a lot about? But ultimately, why don't you become like them in the sense of their running towards him, So anyways, it was cool.
Good
it was
one.
Fun.
That's awesome.
Fun. And I'm really hoping that our groups have a good time with it, and because I think it's a good thought.
It's going to be a good one. Well, if you haven't, I'm just going to repeat that. If you haven't caught the message, go to our website, freedomlifechurch.net.
Yeah. All kidding aside, I think it's useful. I think the Lord was good to us.
Yeah. And so go and check that out. Also download the Buoy app, because we do a lot of our stuff on there, and it's super convenient, and a lot of our messages are uploaded there. So we encourage you to do that. But man, what a great time. Catch up. We'll see you guys next week.
See you.